Let's build a floating paradise from scratch, shall we? Well, hello there, I'm Detroit. Today we're here to have a good time. I'm sorry, I have to say it. We are here to have a good time. Also, subscribe. The goal for today is to draw a lineless floating paradise. Since it's lineless, I go straight to flats. I have no idea yet of what it's gonna look like exactly, so this is kinda like sketching, but instead of thinking the drawing beforehand, I'm sketching as I go along. The idea that I had from the start was to draw this floating place as an island with various elevations. The underside of it will be a brown, rocky, inverted mountain, and the ground will be made of big steps. For that, I'm drawing each step twice. The layers will be the flat ground, and just below, the edge. At first, it looks like nothing at all, but then you kinda get the gist of what it's supposed to look like. Since there is no sketch involved, there is no perspective grid. The perspective will definitely be strange, so I will have to see how to make it quirky and fun with the style. That's the thing, right? Some art styles follow certain rules. Since I chose to ignore the whole sketching and line art phase, I have to ignore perspective rules. This means the style I'll be using needs to be a bit more cartoony, a bit more dreamy and bubbly. I wouldn't be able to draw a realistic place like this without a sketch. Now, I said I was going to draw a floating paradise. I have already decided what the base will look like, the step-like ground, so let's add to this by drawing a river. The river will fall down the front of the floating island, so I'm going to cut the bottom of it to make it disappear. It doesn't make sense, but it adds to the style that is so far a contrast between very round shapes and very angular edges. I wouldn't know how to define the style, to be honest, even the colors. The colors are definitely very saturated and very punchy. From the start, my background was dark blue, so I knew the main theme of the drawing would be bright orange. So far, I've only used brown, green and blue. How can I add orange to this piece? Trees! About 10 of them will do. Let's spread them all around the place. Since I already added shadow to the ground levels, I know how the shadows on the tree will go, so left side darker. From the start, I didn't quite know how I would close off the end of the floating island. I mean, the background that is on top of it. I kinda wanted to add a scenery that wouldn't make sense with the perspective, so I tried with mountains. I ended up keeping them after fudging around with them for a while. You see, the more I draw, the more I see this floating paradise as like the set for dolls or something. Or even actors in a movie set. You have the main place, where the people go and act and stuff, and the background is just a large painted canvas to give the illusion that it's real. That also goes with the fact that the whole place is just a square. Maybe it's a movie set, or maybe it's just a floating paradise. Anyway, I've moved on from the mountains now. I've even added yellow bushes. It's at this point that I took my first break. I stopped recording and I went to do something else for a while. When I came back to my desk, my view of the artwork had shifted a bit. On your new layer, I scribbled notes and arrows indicating what I needed to do. One such thing was making the mountains smaller, for example. I always do that when I take breaks. I take notes and then refer myself to them. I saved that annotated version and opened it on another monitor, like I would with a reference. And then I clicked record and went back to drawing. One of the things I'm glad I did is color every other ground level a different tone of green, a bit more yellowish. This helps make sense of the scene a bit better, I think. Another way to make sense of the ground levels is to emphasize the steps by adding foam to the river where it drops from one level to the next. I built the foam the same way I did the bushes, only without a flat bottom. It's like the simplest thing to do. I'm just pressing the pen more or less to have circles of different sizes. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, but I drew the entire thing with only a simple hard run brush. No opacity variation, and the size depends on the pressure. Eventually, I also use a bit of gradients, but it's for later, for the finishing touches to make the artwork even nicer and well polished. For now, I'm still shading the foam, the mountains, and adding more color to the river. There is something I've been wanting to do with the trees for a while, but I just remember now. I don't like how the orange trees are just there. They need more contrast within themselves, and so I'm adding a white trunk to them. It's not fully white, it's the off-white that I've been using for the mountains and the foam. I don't like to work with full black or full white. Restricting the range of luminosity is often more interesting. On the topic of trees, by now you surely have noticed the large ones in front of the mountains. Again, I don't particularly like these mountains, but they felt necessary, so now I'm trying to hide them a bit and add more color to this side of the drawing. These cool trees are just like the foam from the waterfall. They are circles on top of circles. It's really easy to draw, and I think it fits very well with the overall aesthetic. I love making these simple circles, so I also did that to add berries to the yellow bushes. Hey, you know how I like to draw abstract stuff too? It's like half of this YouTube channel. Well, I can't get enough of abstract patterns, so I'm adding one to the green grass. This pattern is very SpongeBob-like, if that makes sense. I felt like adding it was necessary because the grass looked too flat, but I didn't want to add more small things like trees and bushes. I considered adding small people doing things here and there, but it's supposed to be a paradise, and I don't want other people in my paradise. We're almost to the finishing touches. Let's see, what haven't we done? Oh yeah, clouds. Clouds will help set the floating island in the dark void a bit more. They serve just as shape breakers. You see, the whole island is one massive entity, and especially at the sides, the shape is too flat, so it doesn't look that nice. With the clouds, the transition flows better. And with the clouds, you're also seeing now the first use of gradients. Don't worry, it won't be the last. I'm gradienting the opacity of the clouds, then I'm adding a yellow light on the right side of the island. On the opposite side, so the left if you've been following, I'm adding a dark green gradient. I'm using a new gradient on every level because I want to control the strength of the light individually for each level to make it smooth. I will add more gradients right at the end, but not now, as I finally found what to do with the bottom of the picture. The rocks at the bottom are fine, but I don't like the overall shape of them. The idea I came up with is to add vines on the underside. They're gonna go over and under the rocks at random. To give them a semblance of texture, I'm adding here and there dark and light streaks to them. Since they are on the underside of the island, I will darken them a bit at the sides. Technically, the right side should be more lit and the front darker, but the way I did it, they blend with the background a bit more. They are not the focus, so I don't care if that's not realistic. None of this is supposed to be realistic anyway. We're basically at the end of the process now. I will fudge around with the gradients a bit more, soften the contrast with the mountains, etc. Oh, one last touch I absolutely love are the big transparent bubbles all along the river. I think it fits the aesthetic really well. This water is beautiful and I love it. It was a fun drawing to make, and it was also very fun to rewatch the process while commenting. I tried to stay as close as possible to what actually went through my head while I was drawing. I like decomposing everything I draw to give you guys tips on how to approach your own art making. No decision is truly aimless, but sometimes you don't know why you should make them. Please click the like button if you learned something. Do tell me what I should draw next time and subscribe to make sure you see it. I'm Detroit, I'm currently uploading this to Instagram and I'll see you soon. Bye!